Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into what is basically the ultimate survival guide for navigating the sheer, absolute dysfunction of the adult working world. Seriously, if you've ever stepped into a new job, an internship, or even just a messy university group project and thought, wow, this place is a complete and total chaotic mess, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever wondered why incredibly smart, talented people suddenly make terrible, just completely irrational decisions the minute they're put into a team or a company? I mean, think back to those times you've witnessed a train wreck of a school project or a workplace that just couldn't seem to get out of its own way. It's so incredibly frustrating, right? Well, a management expert named Peter Senge figured out exactly why this happens. In his breakthrough book, The Fifth Discipline, he realized something mind-blowing. Organizations don't fail because they lack talent. No, they fail because they suffer from what he calls organizational learning disabilities. These are basically invisible traps. They're these underlying flaws that keep teams stuck in an endless loop of toxic failure.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to break down Senge's 7 traps into a few main categories: tunnel vision, panic, slow threats, faking it, and finally, the big picture solution. By the end of this, you'll have the exact vocabulary you need to spot these invisible, boss-level traps out in the wild.
Let's kick things off with our first category, tunnel vision and blame.
The very first learning disability Senge identifies is called I am my position. This happens when people develop such an intense, almost obsessive identification with their specific job description that they shrink their responsibilities to the exact, literal boundaries of their role. They completely ignore how their actions affect the larger system, the overall product, or, the actual end goal.
To bring this to life, imagine a software engineer who gets told that customers are really struggling to use a new app feature. Instead of trying to fix the user experience, the engineer just shrugs and goes, "Hey, I just code. That's not my department." By ignoring vital customer feedback simply because it isn't strictly in their job description, they're practically ensuring the whole product fails.
And that leads us perfectly into the second disability. The enemy is out there. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how human nature actually makes us misperceive internally caused problems as external threats. When things go wrong, we constantly seek a scapegoat. We just want to point fingers anywhere but at ourselves.
You see this blame game literally everywhere. Just picture this classic corporate scenario. The sales team blames the manufacturing team for delays, complaining that they're way too slow. Meanwhile, the manufacturing team blames sales, arguing that they promised the client totally unrealistic timelines. They're just pointing fingers at each other. But the real tragedy here? Nobody is actually stepping back to examine the whole system for the root cause of the delay.
Next up, we're looking at panic and short-term thinking.
Disability number 3 is the illusion of taking charge. In the business world, we absolutely love people who are proactive, right? But honestly, a lot of the time what organizations call proactiveness is really just reactive, aggressive panic disguised as strategic leadership. True proactiveness actually means looking inward at how we contribute to our own problems, not just aggressively attacking perceived enemies.
For example, picture a manager whose department isn't hitting its goals. Instead of taking a breath and figuring out why the workflow is broken, they reactively slash budgets in a blind panic. They cut resources and lay people off, all disguised as taking charge and being a tough, decisive leader. But in reality, this knee-jerk reaction completely destroys long-term stability and wrecks team trust. And that kind of panic leads directly into our fourth trap, the fixation on events. Our brains are practically hardwired by evolution to hyper-focus on immediate, loud, short-term crises. But treating those surface-level symptoms entirely blinds us to the slow-building, systemic issues that actually threaten our long-term survival. So, the crucial point is, you can't just react to the loudest noise in the room. Imagine an executive team totally freaking out and losing their minds over a single product recall today. They're holding emergency meetings. Maybe they fire a junior employee to make an example. Meanwhile, they are entirely ignoring a terrifying multi-year pattern of manufacturing decay and quality issues that actually caused the recall in the first place.
All right, moving on to our third section, slow threats and delayed feedback.
Disability number 5 is the parable of the boiled frog. You've probably heard this story. If you put a frog in boiling water, it immediately jumps out. But if you put it in room temperature water and slowly turn up the heat, it boils to death because it can't sense that gradual change. Well, slowly losing company morale works exactly the same way. In year 1, small perks quietly disappear.
Year 2, unpaid overtime becomes the unspoken expectation. Then boom, year 3, everyone suddenly quits at the exact same time. The company was completely numb to the gradual decline.
Next is the sixth disability, the delusion of learning from experience. From day one, we're taught that humans learn best from direct trial and error. But that biological wiring, it fails completely in complex corporate environments. Why? Because the cause of a problem and the effect of that problem are often separated by massive amounts of time and space. For instance, think about a team of engineers. It's incredibly hard for them to learn from a design mistake if the product flaws only show up years after the product is actually made and sold. By the time the customer experiences the failure, say 3 years down the line, those engineers have already moved on to totally new projects. It makes it virtually impossible to connect that original cause with the delayed effect.
Okay, let's look at our final trap category, faking it in meetings.
Senge calls this final trap the myth of the management team. And I guarantee this is universally recognizable to anyone who has ever sat in a corporate boardroom or even a student committee meeting. Executives will sit around a table and confidently say, "I completely agree with this strategy," when in reality they're thinking, "I have absolutely no idea if this will actually work." They fake agreement just to avoid looking uncertain or ignorant in front of the boss. Instead of just admitting they don't know something and learning together, they protect their egos. This creates a total facade of unity, which is a highly toxic condition Senge calls skilled incompetence.
So those are the 7 traps, but let's shift gears now and talk about the big picture solution.
To actually cure these organizational learning disabilities, a company must embrace 5 core disciplines: personal mastery, checking your mental models, building a shared vision, and engaging in honest team learning. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal, because combining those first 4 steps unlocks step 5, systems thinking. This right here is the superpower. It's the ability to see the underlying structures and feedback loops of the whole organization, rather than just pointing fingers at isolated, fragmented parts.
Once you see the whole system, the traps just vanish. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Which of these 7 learning disabilities have you already spotted in your own workplace or maybe your university group project? I challenge you to take your new systems thinking vocabulary and use it to diagnose the world around you. Thank you so much for learning with me on this explainer today, and I'll catch you in the next one.